Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Advent Member Talk. I hope you're all doing well. Um, as you all know, this is a weekly event that we put on that features a different Advent member on the topic of their choosing. This event gives our members the opportunity to share their skills and their knowledge with not only fellow members, but with folks across the greater Charlotte community and all of our friends virtually afar. And so today we are joined by CT, who's going to be speaking to us about environmental and social impacts and how we can each take action to to improve the world around us and be intentional and positively impact our daily lives. CT is going to say that way better than I just did, so I will hand it over to you.
I'm live. I get to say something now.
Yeah.
First things first. Thank you, 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 thank you. I am so grateful when somebody passes me the mic because I like to talk, but even more so because of what's happening these days. There are a lot of things to talk about a lot of issues. And so when you say, "Hey, CT, we'd like to talk to you about the things that you care about," I'm like, "Yeah." So I'm really grateful. Sam, if you don't mind, at some point I may ask a question, so we may open it up. But I'm also grateful to any fellow Advent members who are listening. You guys are all very busy, phenomenal entrepreneurs. I enjoy meeting people in that community. And so I'm just so grateful for you taking the time out to keep your eyes glued to a screen for a few more minutes, because I know a lot of us are doing that these days. And most importantly, for participation. Like I said, I hope we can have some interactive participation. So like Sam said, my name is CT Anderson, and I work in something called environmental social governance, or you may have heard the term corporate social responsibility. I've done this work for a very long time, and that essentially is I used to call it the fun stuff in corporate America, where we get to work on tough issues to have a positive impact, helping companies and people have a positive impact on the people and the planet around them. These days, there are a lot of issues and most people are working on them. So the benefit of these trying times is that we are all entrepreneurial, and innovative in coming up with solutions. All right, cool. So my first statement that I would love people to respond to is 13 zeros.
You said 13 zeros?
13 zeros.
What does that mean? I'm writing in the comments right now telling folks to respond to this question. Hold on. And is this our interpretation of what that
Just
could
what
mean?
comes to mind when you hear that.
Sounds like to me like a serial code.
Okay. Serial code, that's a good one. Anyone else?
Not seeing anyone yet. There is a slight delay, so I'll let you know if.
Okay, cool. Keep going. So 13 zeros used to be the license plate on my license plate, my vanity plate. And my partner at the time, when she bought the car for me, she asked me if I wanted to have, anything special on there, and that was what I wanted to have. And it tells you a little bit about me, but it also tells you about how I grew up. Maybe ages me a little bit, because I grew up in the age of the initial, I shouldn't say initial, it's in the 90s with the bravado rap where it talked about, how much you had, all about the Benjamins, that sort of thing. And so 13 zeros represents a financial figure, tens of trillions of dollars. However, for me, I tweaked it to mean that before I leave this planet, that's the impact that I want to leave. So when CT Anderson is no longer physically here and I'm off into the heavens hanging out, I would love to have left a positive impact that equals 13 or tens of trillions of dollars. 13 also happens to be my birth date. I won't tell you what month, but you can figure it out, I'm sure, by Googling it. And so it's kind of my lucky number. And so 13 zeros is my guiding principle in everything that I do. Now, I don't always, sometimes I'm human. Of course, we all have different things, but it allows me to have a focused goal and be intentional about everything that I do. So if I am volunteering, if I'm talking to someone at work with my coworkers, with my family, my children, my nieces, anyone, I want to make sure that I'm having a positive impact. And so I can have that impact in multitude of ways. I talked earlier about environmental and social. And so we all know that climate change is impacting our planet in a negative way. And so I said previously, I've worked in this space for a very long time. So ways that people can have a positive environmental impact is something that I've worked on for a long time because I've worked with big companies that do that. And so I recently started a nonprofit organization called Spring Clean, springclean.org. And our tagline is, "You clean out your closets, we make beautiful things." And essentially what that means is this jacket that I have on today, when I'm done with it, I can text or go online and order a spring clean. Someone will come pick these clothes up, this jacket up. They will then go to a dry cleaner that has partnered with us to clean it, and then we'll make it into something else. And so in the case of this is a nice kind of faux denim, kind of a cotton. I would probably make this into a bag or something. We've been using them to make for the current period into personal protection equipment, PPE and things like that. And I'm very, very excited because we've been able to partner with artists who have been out of work because of the impact of the pandemic and allow them to earn by helping us make these items that we then sell. So that's one way that I have had, that I manifest my environmental impact. I don't think everyone should start a nonprofit. However, I think that if we all wear clothes, so one thing that people can do is to make sure that you don't throw your clothes away to landfill. You don't throw them away because there is no such a thing as away. It has to go somewhere. So I'll pause there for a second. Anyone else say anything about 13 zeros, Sam?
No one on 13 zeros, but I just shared the link for Spring Clean website on there. And I do want folks to know that we're gonna do that clothes drive soon. So it's so important to recycle your clothes. You have to.
Awesome. Yeah, actually, I think I have a date for you, so we can talk about that. We'll follow up with you on that.
Awesome.
Cool. So do you think I should share more on the environmental side or should I go onto the social side?
Both are so important. I mean, it's completely intertwined. So environmental and social impact are, yeah.
Ding, ding, ding. Well, I've kind of already shared it in terms of Spring Clean, in terms of that our mission is to create jobs in the circular economy. And that's a whole term that people like to use around instead of taking, making, wasting, you take, you make, then you reuse. So you don't have to take again when you remake something. And so we have both, our mission is to create jobs and reduce items sent to landfill. So we have both the environmental and the social impact. The average US citizen, and this number is pre-COVID, so I'm not sure if it still holds up today, but throws away about 70 pounds of clothes a year. And so if we think about that, that's a lot of clothes for a lot of people. And that's just the US number. The global number is around the same. It's obviously not pounds, it's kilos, but I forgot it right now. But it's the same. And so one way, like Sam said, that we can all have a positive impact is to donate your clothes once you're done with them. Well, people always, when I share that, sometimes people say, well, CT, my stuff, nobody wants it. I've worn this t-shirt, it's my favorite. I've worn it till, it's holy and all that other stuff. The good news is that there are organizations, and I am promoting myself here, or the organization that I work with here, that can do that for you. It doesn't have to be something that you sell to a thrift store or one of those resale organizations, although that's just as important. However, if you have those items that are just kind of, a little grungy, we'll take them. Like I said, we work with dry cleaners to clean them and we'll find another use. Now, in the case of those items, they can't be resold into things that are for consumers. However, there are other ways that can be worked. And so I think that if we are all, as Sam mentioned earlier, intentional and deliberate about the positive impact that we have, be intentional and deliberate about sharing positive vibes and positive energy, now more than ever. If I can share personally, I spent a significant portion of my formative years in South Minneapolis. And so when George Floyd was murdered while in police custody, it hit me hard because I knew exactly where that location was. My siblings went to high school near there. But my son, who happens to be a young man in college, was just recently stopped by the police 2 days before that all came out. And it was so easy. It was so easy to kind of spiral down. I mean, rightfully so, but it was very, very, very difficult to continue to have that positive impact and positive vibes. And so what I do in times like that for myself personally, and I can share with others, is that I literally write down something that I'm grateful for. Now, this will sound vain, but for me, I focus on myself. I focus on love across a lot of things, but I focus on loving CT first. I love myself a lot. And so if I do that, then if I come and speak to someone else, if I say, hey, Sam, I want to talk to you, and it looks like you're having a bad day or we're trying to get something done. If I think of Sam as myself, literally as a mirror, then I will automatically give more positive energy to her because I'm being kind to her because I need to be kind to myself, if that makes sense. So I'll pause there for a moment.
That 100% makes sense. And it's such an important thing for us all to remember, especially now and throughout time, from the killing of Black people to systemic racism that folks have been experiencing forever to a global pandemic. There's so many things right now that are keeping us down. And I think your point to, prioritizing ourselves and reminding ourselves that we love ourselves is really important. So thank you.
Of course. And I have, this super curly hair. I see you have some curly hair as well. So one of the things that I write down is that I love my hair. That's not always true, but if I write it down, eventually I will like it. Because on today's like today where it's really super humid and it's not doing what I wanted to do, I'm like, but
I feel you. Yeah, I'm from Charlotte, so growing up in this humidity it's just always been a thing.
Precisely. Do we have any questions or comments yet?
No, we don't. Not right now.
Okay, cool. And so I wanted to stop there because I think one of the things that I do in my business that I just recently started sharing, and maybe it was actually at the beginning of 2020 before COVID became a global pandemic. I decided, just probably like so many people, 2020 is a new decade. So let's start, afresh or anew. And so one of the things I committed to myself was to be 100% of myself in all different spaces. And so something that I do all the time, when I said earlier, is I lead with love. And so when you say that in a professional setting, it may make some people uncomfortable. But I committed to myself at the beginning of this year that I wouldn't let that bother me. And so I started something else. I started a podcast called Creation Care. And the whole premise behind Creation Care is caring for all of creation. And I wanted to share stories of positive environmental and social impact. And so I knew, having worked in this space for a very long time and just being surrounded by so many great people, that there are so many untold stories of people doing positive things every single day that have massive impact. Going back to my 13 zeros point, we all contribute so much, but we never look at it that way. It's a volunteer hour sometimes not quantified unless you're writing a grant application. the impact that you have on somebody's life when you say a kind word, when you let them in front of you in line, when you pay for their meal, just little small things, when you just smile on a webcast. You have no idea the impact that that could have, but we should start thinking that way. And so back to that of leading with love. So I started that podcast. I started interviewing people that I knew who weren't famous, not necessarily well known, but who were working every day to have a positive impact. And it's been so much fun. I actually stopped publishing the episodes right around March when COVID really hit home. I've continued to record, and I'm looking so forward to sharing those coming soon. I haven't decided when I'll publish them, but I really, really, really have learned so much. And like I said, I've been doing this work for a very long time, just by having 30-minute conversations with people about what they're doing in their life. I've talked to people about composting, doctors about mental health. One of my friends lives in Nashville, and they had some flooding there and some issues. And so I talked to her about how she just pulled people together at the last minute to do some things. I talked to someone else the other day about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which for your policy wonks, you're like, yes, the SDGs, I'm all about it. But for people who don't know what that is, it's basically a framework that the UN put together to make the world a better place, period. And one of the things he was saying is like, CT, you should start interviewing companies that are doing this as a part of their mission. And I thought, that's genius. So coming soon. Make the world a better place. Lead with love. Positive environmental and social impact. Leading with love means loving yourself first. Be selfish, be intentional, be deliberate. If you don't have anything else that you can think of, pick one physical thing, pick breath. You are grateful that you can breathe. And that term in itself, particularly this year, means a lot more to people. And so that's how I break down such big, complex things, because I'm one of those people who thinks really big. And once, like, I started with 13 zeros, for goodness sakes, I want to really save the world, but it can be overwhelming. So you got to just funnel that down. I can pause there for a second.
Yeah, I love that you're making the connections with all of that, from between like policy to environmental rights to social rights, just to like our individual well-being, because like you said, it is so interconnected and affects all of us. So
Thank
that's
you.
important. Yeah, we sustainability is very important to myself, but also like to Advent. And so we have composting, we have recycling. Envision Charlotte is working on a pretty cool project. I don't know if you're familiar
Yeah.
with their Send Me On My Way work. So that's all great. And so I think talking about circular economy and sustainability, not just from like recycling our items, like our physical items, or like taking care of like the physical world around us, it's also about ourselves. Like how are we continuing our energy and like sustaining our energy, and like the power of folks all around us. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that what you're saying is exactly right. And one thing that a lot of times I keep having to learn this lesson over and over again is, for social impact, is it doesn't mean that you always have to give something. Keeping it to yourself, keeping yourself to yourself, giving yourself space and time, saying no. That's a really, really, really generous act to yourself. And so, similar to what I said about earlier this year, where I said I wasn't going to worry if I said leading with love and they gave me like some kind of weird, like, okay, yeah, that's me. That's what you get, CT. You get leading with love. That's just, I'm not going to hold it back anymore. And so if I can give, especially this community of hardworking entrepreneurs, say no more. More often, use the word no.
It's important. Practice it in the mirror. No, I will not do that.
And some people, you may be experts. I mean, I've been taught by my partner and others, like, no. And that's the end of the sentence. There's no explanation. The answer is no.
For sure.
So I'll pause if there's any questions or anything that you want to add.
Yeah, I think one question that I was kind of thinking of, and maybe this is not quite in relation to everything that you've just said, but something that I've been interested in, especially kind of looking into Spring Clean and the work that you're doing. And I know that you do a lot to support the artists and to support people who are putting these clothes together. And I think from my experience, one oversight that a lot of folks seem to have when talking about environmental impact and saving the planet or whatever language folks use is when it comes to clothes, there's real people creating these like fabrics that are being abused. And I feel like that isn't talked about a lot. And so just wondering if you have any like thoughts on that, on I don't know if it's like how folks can buy more ethically or just how folks can support actual workers like on the ground.
Yes, I should have researched those links because there's all over. Okay, my social media feed, maybe not yours, but all they're like, support the workers because I guess a couple of the larger companies, the larger brands, either canceled their orders or didn't pay the orders that they had once the sales started going down because everyone was staying home. And so people who typically aren't American citizens, they aren't here in the United States, so they depended on that money very, very much so, didn't have the means to take care of their family. So already they're in a pandemic. Already people don't know what's going on. And now they don't have a paycheck. That happened also in this country. And so that is one of the main reasons Spring Clean was committed to not create the same system. So for every time something is made by an artist, they get 50%, period. Non-negotiable, that's what you get. Now, if you want to work with the artist separately, we're happy to do that. We don't have anything to do with that. I mean, promoting people and paying them a livable wage, not just a wage, is very, very important. And so if you don't want to learn about all that stuff, one simple thing you can do is that when you buy something brand new, I say the first simple thing you can do is buy something that is gently used or remade. That's number one. But if you absolutely need something that's brand new, because sometimes you need something, like I need some new socks, I'm not going to buy reused socks. However, what I did is I just researched brands that made in an ethical way. And so there's all sorts of fair trade organizations that you can research. I wish I should have brought those links, Sam. I wasn't thinking. But there are ways that you can actually do it on Amazon. You can Google buy that type. When I buy certain products, I Google, fair trade certified or organic or environmental working group approved or whatever the group is. And it pulls up things that are very similar.
Yeah, and I'm going to share this video to our YouTube channel, Advent Co-working Videos. And so if you send me any links, I can include those into the description for folks to follow.
Okay, great. So sorry about that not being 100% prepared. I didn't expect you to ask that question, which I don't understand why I didn't, because it makes it's a perfect question to ask. So
what other questions can I think of that are
throw me off?
No. No, I love that y'all like pay your artists so much. That's like so important. How have you been connected to those artists? Are they local Charlotte folks? Do you work with like local artist collections? Like, how did you get to meet all those awesome people?
I other Advent members actually. There's other people in my community, in my network. So when I first started this organization, I had a vision, and the vision kind of changed as I started working with different people. So I just reached out to my network. One of the artists, our lead artist, I met through one of my Leadership Charlotte classmates, Janelle Logan, who did a talk with you guys recently. And I met him because he was at the McCall Center for Art and Innovation here locally in Charlotte. And he was a resident artist there. And so we just clicked, and every couple of weeks or so, I'll be like, "Ooh, let's try this," and be like, "No, CT, that's not gonna work." And so we just have a really good relationship. And so I am, long story short, it's my network and my community, and I just reach out to people, and I'm always looking for artists. So if there are people that are watching this that are interested in working with Spring Clean, by all means, info@springclean.org. You can go on our website and send in information. However you want to reach us, we're happy to accept, because we like to test and test things out and work them out. I mean, it took us maybe about 5 or 6 iterations before we got our products right. Probably about 2 weeks worth of research and work. One of the things we wanted to be very intentional about was not just sewing together a bunch of fabric and saying this will protect you. So we worked with doctors and looked at the scientific research to make sure that what we were making could actually remove particles from the air before it got to you. So we're very intentional about that, and we will be intentional about that going forward. I used to play the flute when I was younger, and I just read in this article that for some high school bands and some major orchestras, they're worried about, everything with the pandemic. And so there's research now that says if they cover their instruments with cloth, that will help reduce the particles. So I'm like, we should start making band covers. Yes.
Please say more.
Right? I don't know if that's geeky or what, but I just got so excited about that article. I was like, oh, and I talked to our operations manager the other day, and she's like, CT, what are you talking about? I was like, I need somebody to research this. This is awesome.
That's brilliant. I actually play the trumpet in the Charlotte Pride Band, which you should join as a flute player.
I used to play way.
It's like riding a bike. But that's so cool, because that's just a really cool idea. I'm very interested in that and how that could work. And I didn't realize that y'all were making masks either.
Yeah.
How can folks get a mask from you?
Springclean.org/masks.
I'm gonna get one.
Perfect. Done. And you can also set me up with the Charlotte Pride Band. Maybe you guys can be our test market for the band covers. I do want to test that out.
That would be really cool. I'm gonna send it some emails.
Okay.
Because I know this is so off topic. Just gonna be band nerds for a moment. But there are some folks who are doing like small group performances, and I think that would be a great way to help keep everyone safe, because it's a very intergenerational group, and so lots of folks who are yeah.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Oh, let's see. We have just about 2 minutes left.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you'd like to touch on for folks?
Love, and more love.
Yes. I'm here for it.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And like I said, y'all, this is a weekly event that we put on. So CT is one of our amazing members. Next week, we're going to be joined by Christy Puckett-Williams, who works for the ACLU. She's going to be talking about the history of policing, actually, and what calls to defund actually mean and look like. But if you're a member and you're interested in leading a talk, it's a topic of your choosing, so feel free to just message me. And this will be up on our YouTube channel, so everyone can share this out and watch it at a later time. So thank you again, CT. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for love. Love you all back.
Alrighty. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.